I wanted to turn. I don't know if you saw Jack Murphy, who is a commentator online. I'm not too familiar with his work, but I saw he had he was tweeting a lot about asking questions about, is the government food pyramid responsible for the rise of obesity? And I guess he kind of concluded no, it was not, and it was getting different people to debate. And a lot of folks kept pointing the finger at their recommendations for grains and carbohydrates in the food pyramid, and I had said, I don't think it's the carbs that's driving this uptick in obesity over the decades. It's the vegetable oils. How do you assess that? I don't know if you saw that discussion, and how would you approach that? Do you think the food pyramid?
Is this Jack Murphy Live?
Yeah.
Is that his Twitter handle?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I haven't seen it because it seems that he blocks me.
Oh, he blocks you.
I've never heard the guy before.
Oh, it says this blocks you. You didn't even know that until we.
Or maybe he just went. Oh no! It says these tweets are protected. Only approved followers can see Jack Murphy Live's tweets. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know how that works, but yeah, I mean, just this general thought that it's not. You see this a lot on the right. There's a wave of thought that people say, well, it's not the food pyramid that be blamed. It's actually people's indulgences and so forth that's causing the obesity problem in America.
Well, I mean, yeah. Generally, the people making those arguments are nutritionists and food scientists. Food scientists, I shouldn't say that. Nutrition science people. There are lots of food scientists who actually know what they're doing. I mean, look, we have an obesity epidemic in the United States. We have a solution to it, right? I've covered this on Twitter before. I actually put a AnaGIF presentation together, right? The point of the dietary guidelines and the food pyramid was to reduce obesity. And obesity has gone up, not down, since then. So this is engineering 101, right? Whenever you have an intervention that you're trying to do and the exact reverse of your intended effect happens, the absolute first thing to cross your mind is, that should cross your mind is, oops, did I cause this? Right? You're messing around with it. You're trying to change it, and it just happens to go the wrong way. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, so anybody who comes out right off the bat and says, obviously there's no relationship, is kind of making a ridiculous argument, because it's clearly a possibility. Right? And there's no way that you can just categorically rule it out by blaming the people who you did this thing to, saying, oh, well, everybody's just overindulging. You know who's also apparently overindulging? Pigeons in New York City, rats in New York City, raccoons all over the place, right? Any animal that eats our pets, our dogs, right, our cats, any animal that eats something that looks like the dietary guideline gets fat and sick. Maybe that's what's causing it, right? If you go to your doctor and say, Doc, I'm too thin, I want to gain weight, you know what they're going to do? They're going to give you Ensure. And you know what the ingredients of that are? Sugar, carbohydrates, and seed oils. Well, those are the dietary guidelines. And we've known since, 40s was when we started seeing products on the market that include sugar, carbohydrates, and seed oils to make people fat, right? So we switch the whole country's diet in that direction, and everybody gets fat. For anybody to say, oh, well, it's obviously not the dietary guidelines, it's ridiculous that anybody would make that claim, right? It's obviously a significant possibility that our little experiment didn't work, because most experiments that you do on people don't work. That should always be your assumption. So,
you bring up some good points there that I wanted to expand on there with the giving Ensure to like patients, elderly patients trying to gain weight, and that's just seed oil toxicity going through their body. And it reminds me of how many folks who are in rehabs and nursing homes and hospitals who are trying to recover, and they're being given omega-6 PUFA seed oils in their recovery formula they're drinking to get weight. That's not the solution. That's not going to help things, is it?
It'll make it worse. I mean, that's the formula. And I have a study that compares that exact formula to the formula that they give to lab animals to make them obese. It's the same thing, right? So we know what makes animals fat. You can call up a company called Research Diets and buy it. And we know what causes people to get fat. I mean, I found an ad in the British Medical Journal from 1956, if I remember correctly, that was paying Raquel Welch to sell a product called Weight On. And what were the main ingredients of Weight On? It was sugar, carbohydrates, and corn oil, right? We know how to make people fat. We know what works. We've known it for decades, for longer than either one of us or most of the people listening to this show have been alive. And then we get people who say, oh, well, it's just a coincidence that the Dietary Guidelines happens to do the same thing, right? And shifted the American diet in the direction of obesity. And, but it doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, it's absurd to claim that. It's just absurd.
Yeah, and, well, let me push back a little bit. So you said that these seed oil rich formulas for helping people, or especially think about all the elderly folks or older folks who are in recovery or in the hospital or in nursing homes or rehab facilities, and they push their government dietary guidelines are going to push these seed oil type products as the basis of their food for fat and so forth. Now, what if someone said, well, it's not, well, we're not worried about obesity. We're just going to help them with recovery and healing. So would these seed oil products like Ensure and others like it create healing effects, even though they might be obesogenic and causing obesity?
Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. I don't think you make people better by making them sick, right? Most of the people who are in those facilities are in those facilities because they have some sort of chronic disease. There are going to be very few people who they either have, diabetes complications, they have heart disease, they have some flavor of cancer. All the biggest killers in cancer are the ones that are associated with, quote unquote, the Western diet. Do we recommend that alcoholics drink more alcohol to get better, to go through rehab? No, it's absurd. First thing you do with an alcoholic is you try and get them off of alcohol, because that is part of what's causing the harm to them. So, no, it doesn't make...
Isn't that what Dr. Dr. Bruce Hammock, many years ago, we talked about with him, and in his early studies, he's at UC Davis, but he said that his first studies, he was looking at how burn unit victims couldn't heal very well when they had the rich omega-6 seed oil foods, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's beyond that. There was a paper that I think we talked about with him where they were looking at an intensive care unit with people who couldn't feed themselves, and they looked at the mortality rate of people who were given soybean oil intravenously, and it was 7 times higher, right? So they were not making people better by giving them a little bit of soybean for a little while, a little bit of soybean oil intravenously for a little while. They were killing them. And they switched in the middle of the study because they realized that they were killing their patients and they didn't want to do that, so they stopped. right? And how were they killing them? They were killing them by giving them ARDs. ARDs is how COVID kills you, right? And you are more susceptible to getting ARDs the more seed oil fats you have in your body. So no, they're not. And then we turn around and wonder why countries with an obesity epidemic have 10 times higher mortality from COVID than countries that don't. Why were people who were in nursing homes, where by law they're required to eat based on the dietary guidelines, why were the mortality rates so much higher there? Part of it, of course, was age, but I can't help but think that part of it's because of the diet. We know that. We know that those fats affect the rates of the disease, the rates of the condition that COVID kills you with in humans.
What do people do who have loved ones in hospitals, rehabs, and nursing homes who are concerned about seed oils being all over every food they get while they're there trying to heal, ostensibly?
It's super hard. I mean, obviously the best answer is bring your own food in, but that's not practical all the time. It's super difficult. It really is. And I mean, they literally think that they are helping these people getting better, and they all have nutritionists on staff who are going to tell you nonsense left, right, and sideways about how the dietary guidelines are the best thing that ever happened. So, it's really hard, David.
And that, folks, is why it's so important to get government guidelines deeply reformed or repealed or investigated so that we can get these known carcinogenic, obesogenic, diabetes-causing, heart disease-causing, inflammation-causing, difficulty healing-causing products, these vegetable seed oils like cottonseed, canola, corn, soybean, safflower, sunflower, out of our lives. Our government has made this extremely difficult, as Tucker has alluded to, but we have to have the courage to take care of our neighbors and do whatever we can in the immediate front, which means getting our neighbors and ourselves away from these toxic products completely, and then doing what we can to get systemic change. And I hope maybe the state of Florida can lead on this issue and help trying to get some of these guidelines reformed at a state level or something so that people can stop poisoning those who are most vulnerable. Tucker, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure.
David, thanks for having me on, as always. It is a pleasure.
I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.